Hello everyone, welcome back to Beneath the Lift Tower. What an episode. But my name's Charles McGilvray and I'm once again joined by Jess Keble and Simon Stacey. I'm not sure what we're going to talk about this week, but I'm sure we'll find a few things. Before we get into it, please remember to like, subscribe, leave us 5-star ratings on Spotify if you wouldn't mind. It really helps us to sort of grow this so we can bring you some more content and a few different things we've got lined up going forward. But yeah, how are you both doing?
Tired. Just got back a few hours ago. So
yeah, I was very tired yesterday. I left the house at about 5 in the morning on Saturday, and I got in at about 5 in the morning on Sunday, sort of thing. I was in and out, but it was what an experience, to be honest. Hell of a stadium, hell of an atmosphere.
Yeah, definitely.
What did you think of the game? So obviously you weren't able to get over there. So you had a better view than probably us because you watched it on TV. What did you think?
I was gutted I couldn't be there because it's such a historic ground. But yeah, the game, my God. 60 minutes, we weren't even in it. If we played about another 10 minutes, we think we could have won that, especially if the ref had a protractor and knew the angles at the side of the rucks, but we won't go. But the boys, in the end, once they got over the occasion, they were immense as normal, and I didn't expect that. But yeah, proud of them, because they were getting well and truly played off the park. So whatever happened at half time, that occasion must have got to a few of them, though. Because only some of them are young boys. There's 82,000 people. That's a big audience to play in front of. But yeah, proud of the boys to nearly nick it. And we should have had a penalty in the last phase, but we won't mention that because we're not blaming the ref. We made so many drops, so many knock-ons. It's our own fault.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be a running theme with Northampton is that I've said it before. We're a rope-a-dope side. Our game is hang in for 60 minutes. If we can hang in there, we generally have the momentum, and we've worked the game out by that point. And that first 20 minutes, we were a bit like headless chickens. We couldn't slow them down. They were just getting over the game line, really, really tearing us apart, and things just dropped their way. And then when we did get hold of the ball, we couldn't hold on to it because we were just too frenetic, to trying to do things too quickly, and we were going through the motions, but we weren't engaging in what we were doing. It was like, all right, in and out of the hands, but they weren't really applying themselves in the way we know they can. And then once the sort of the tide and the momentum shifted, and they started to tire, I think, and there's probably reasons why they started to tire, and we can get into that, but we were really on the front foot come that last 10-20 minutes building the score. And like you say, I'm not going to blame the ref, but there was because the referee was fairly naff all game, right, for both sides, so it was fairly even, and the game shouldn't come down to a moment. There was one moment at that end when he gave the penalty for holding on at the ruck, when there might have been a few bodies not rolling away, there might have not been a release from O'Brien and Conan, and that penalty could have gone the other way. And if it'd gone the other way, we'd probably be talking about going to a European final, was my thought. And that was gutting. It was heartbreaking in the crowd. What did you think, Jess?
Yeah, kind of same, really. I think that first 60 minutes was a shame because we just didn't look like ourselves. It's like we were trying to be ourselves, and then it wasn't working, and then I think we just lost our way really quickly. I mean, I'm not a rugby coach, and I'm not skilled in that way in any way, shape or form. It just felt like sometimes we resorted to some tactics that just didn't make sense to me and didn't make sense for the way that we play our game. I think when you look at like Gibson Park, for example, every kick was completable and was contestable, and they contested it and they tended to win. And ours, it was just, you could just tell that we were under the pressure because we were just kicking to get rid of it, to get some breathing space. We weren't trying to compete. And they said it's just little things like dropping the ball. But for me, it wasn't just a dropping the ball or the missed passes or whatever, because that happens in every game, even games we've gone on to win. It just felt like we came out and didn't play our usual gameplay for that first 60 minutes. And it's that gameplay that kind of got us there in the first place. And like I said, you saw it in the last 20 minutes. I felt like there was such a huge difference between the first 60 and the last 20. And I think a lot of that really comes down to bringing people off the bench it was like a message had been obviously gotten to them, like, you need to just go on and try something different because what we've been doing for 60 minutes hasn't been working. But I will say there were still things I was really impressed by even in that 60 minutes. So I actually felt like, take James Lowe out of the equation because he's a freak of nature. I feel like defence otherwise was actually probably better than people might give it credit for. I think they could have been a lot more points ahead of us by the end of that first half with kind of how off of it we were. Like, they could have put it to bed. And we are a side where, 17-3 at half time. I didn't feel like that had completely put us to bed. And I did feel like if we could turn it on, we could get back into it. But I'm also hesitant to say that getting that penalty would have meant we won the game. It would have gotten us 30 more minutes. And then that's just, you just don't, I know we were on the up at that point, but you've got to figure that Leinster would have switched it probably back on at some point. It's an unknown for me. So I'm sort of hesitant to be like, if we've got that decision, and I think, like you said, we didn't watch it on telly, so it wasn't in as good of a position and didn't have the ref mic or anything like that to kind of hear decisions. But I mean, there was a clear out from Ram where they replayed it on the screen, and I was thinking he's very lucky to still be on the field. A couple of things that they did too. I think a lot was missed. I think just to sit there and sort of,
what was your view, Simon, on that Ram thing? From me, I looked at the screen, I thought he was okay, but
the Ram one was fine. And they're all shouting head contact. He went straight in and went underneath them. He didn't touch anybody. That's why they reviewed it and let it go. But yeah,
I don't think they did review it. From what I could tell, the TMO had pretty much nothing to do with that game, because there was something else. I think it was someone very clearly pushed or pulled George Furbank off the ball when he was trying to compete for it. And I saw that in real time. I think everybody saw that in real time, and it was replayed on the screen, and you could see that in real time. And Courtney went up to the ref and so did George, both trying to make their point, and there just wasn't any kind of interest there. It was
when he jumped up to catch it, on telly, he said to the ref, "You can't push me. I'm in the air. That's a penalty."
Yeah,
and he didn't give it. Yeah, the ref just let the game go, and he didn't really.
But I also feel like what we didn't do is we didn't play to the ref. So no, he wasn't reffing the breakdown. So why were we not doing something?
We're too polite.
It felt right from the beginning. We were way too polite in the breakdown. I was like, if they're getting away with it, because I can understand in their mind, they're probably like, we don't want to do it if it's going to give a penalty away. And I was like, but they're not giving penalties. At one point, just be like, screw it. We're just going to throw bodies in and see what happens, because it wasn't being reffed.
I'm not sure it is so much that, though. It's not. It's just the inconsistency. I mean, we have struggled throughout this tournament dealing with the different interpretations, especially with French referees. And we've had Matthew Renal a couple of times, and we have struggled in each game with his interpretation. I mean, that last penalty, I don't understand how it can not be because he's never released the tackle plan. He's literally put him on the floor and he's just gone straight onto the ball while still holding on to him. And whilst players are not rolling away, and in the Prem, it's almost every single time you go to compete for the ball, you get penalised because the referee will give not rolling away. So all the players in the Prem are conditioned to almost don't compete because the refs are so hot on that player in the breakdown area getting out first because they want speed of play, whereas Renal's obviously an older breed of ref and also French. So you put those two things together and what you get is inconsistencies and shocking. But it's I like I said, it's not you can't point. I don't think you can point the referee and blame him. He was the same throughout. And our second, I think it was our Seabrook try. You could argue that they had a player being tended to by the medical staff, and the referee just played on. A lot of other refs. But a lot of refs would have stopped the ball, would have stopped play, wouldn't they? So,
I mean, some do. Even English refs won't stop in that situation if it's not a head injury, but some will.
Yeah,
you don't know what it is that's going to happen, dude. It clearly wasn't a head injury either, so there actually wasn't any onus on the referee to stop that in that moment. I mean, it's unfortunate, obviously.
It looked like a forward pass. Well, I watched on the telly when that long pass from Finn. It did look forward, but he didn't back. So.
That's what I mean. It felt very much like swings and roundabouts in terms of decisions going your way or not going your way. For both teams, I think they would both if Leinster had, let's say, we had gone on to win, they would probably feel perhaps the same slightly, that it didn't quite go how they expected it to. But the reality is, in a European semi-final against what is essentially the Ireland national team, you can't not play for 60 minutes and think you're going to come away.
Yeah,
the winners.
we are a team that give, our game, we generally in most games we hang on in there and then come good at the end. That's the way we've won games all year. But you can't afford to have 15 points to catch up. That's too many against that quality side. And it's just so heartbreaking that we almost did it. We were a decision away from being in a position to really to go for it. And the likelihood is we're not going to be in that position. You as a fan, you wait for years for that moment, and it comes and it goes. And the occasion was so good that it was almost like the dream's been made here, and it just didn't go the right way. But
I feel like as well we pushed them, particularly in that last quarter, much harder than anyone even really thought we were going to. I think a couple of people had picked Saints in terms of pundits, but I think that was probably more out of hope than expectation, really. And I think generally speaking, us and Quins were both expected to lose and lose pretty easily. And so I'm just kind of thinking in terms of thinking about us and also Quins a little bit here. I just think it's a really good representation of the Prem and the talent here of us English teams push them, because they pushed Toulouse really, really hard. And, they weren't massively far off either. And you think it's hard. It's difficult to compete on two fronts.
If you look at the budget, look at their budget.
Yeah, exactly.
Toulouse's budget's got to be 30 million, and Leinster's island.
Yeah,
they're playing on a 5 million budget. They mentioned that in the commentary. They said that Austin Healy actually give us some kudos. He said, fair play to Saints. They're playing a team that's 5 times their budget, which is correct.
The budget's a bit of a misnomer, though, isn't it? Because the Leinster side, the budget is almost irrelevant, because it's a provincial side. So it's essentially like a national team. You're playing for your region, which is basically like they've got over 2 million people in that province in Leinster.
It's not a level playing field, though, is it?
No, but that's just the side. The money factor is not so much the same. I think the Leinster model is the model that Northampton need to be building towards, because how many people live in our region is probably quite a large number. We're a population of 60 million as a country. How many people live in the East Midlands? There's probably a pretty large number. So we, as a club, their aim needs to be striving towards making every young kid who plays rugby in that region dreaming of playing for Northampton Saints. You then balance the playing fields, because you're in exactly the same thing. Money goes out the window if you've got local regional people wanting, pulling from a bigger pool. It's a numbers game. It's almost like the Olympics, right? So the Olympics has always been a numbers game. The nation with the biggest population, it's always been incredibly successful. Someone like China and America have got huge populations, and therefore they're always top of the tree. And then you get like nations such as Australia is a good example, with a tiny population, but their sports science kept them in the game for so long.
Yeah.
And so that it's almost like the French teams, because of their money, have sort of putting them up there, even though they haven't got necessarily the population, say, of a Leinster and around Toulouse.
Yeah.
But Toulouse is Leinster's a numbers game. You got so many population going into one team. That's then very well organised and incredible.
Yeah, but their squads are huge, though. Look what they've done next year. They've nicked us, is it Sneyman from Munster, and they've signed Jody Barrett for 6 months. On top of 13 of the Irish side.
Yeah.
It's not just like Billy Bob who lives down the road. These are international players. So I get what you're saying about the money, but it's still money talks, because they can rest that squad. Like Lowe, they said on commentary, he played one game in their championship, and he's only played in the Champions Cup. That's it. So no wonder.
They said that our players combined had played 81 more hours on the field.
You just nicked my stat. I was going to say that.
But it felt like, but weirdly enough, though, it felt like that benefited them in the first half. Leinster, they were very fresh and they were on it, and then it seemed to not have the opposite effect in the second half. It was like they didn't, that kind of second half, they looked tired out and that they weren't match ready. And so sometimes you will see that effect. And like I said, I think that's why we kind of came up a bit at the end, because we brought on replacements with me sort of between 50, 60 minutes. And I think they made a real difference for us, like just that kind of core group, that contingent group of people. I think it is. I think it's not it isn't a level playing field, and that's not us whinging because we got to the semi-final, and that's like an incredible thing. Like especially considering where we were last year, like we crashed out of the pools with no wins. I think actually both us and Quins pushed two teams that are probably a massive step above us, almost, out. of the tournament. And so I think both of our teams have put, I think, a really good account. But it is difficult. I think of it as kind of, and the players probably won't feel this now, but they might at the end of the season. I feel like not being in the final is going to benefit us in terms of trying to win the Premiership, because some of those players at the end of that game looked knackered. We've picked up injuries. And so having that week where you can rest that core group of players for a week, I actually think is going to be a massive benefit when we head in. And like I said, if you're lifting the Prem trophy at the end of the season, you think, there's potential that we may not have been here if it wasn't for, being in a final potentially. You might win that. You could have won against Toulouse, maybe, I don't know. But I just feel like I don't think we can compete on two fronts, and that's not a criticism of the team. I think it's very difficult to do that for anybody, and I just don't think we could. Because like I said, Leinster don't actually compete on two fronts, do they? They don't play that team in the URC, so they're playing on one front really. And then Toulouse just have such a big squad with such ridiculous talent they can buy in that they can compete on two fronts. It's very different. And so I see it as kind of, I'd have loved to have been there, obviously, but I also think that actually it might help our chances a little bit, because that week we don't have to play anybody. And obviously we'll come on to Gloucester a bit later, but I think it kind of helps us with tactics against Gloucester, what we might do in terms of who we send to Bath and who not, and then the rest week after that when the final's on. I think actually it might put us in a better shape. So we don't have Slight home at the moment. Hendy went off and definitely wasn't right, and whether that's just because he was injured and he had to start and he just wasn't quite at the level they wanted him to, but he struggled and was really struggling at the end. And so I think actually some of those rest times that those players are going to get might be helpful to us when it comes on later in the Prem, which is now obviously what we're going to throw everything at.
Yeah, I think the game obviously is a great game for the squad to develop in. They've gone there, they've experienced that. There isn't going to be that is the biggest game of rugby what they'll ever play in. I know they've played in World Cup, players have played World Cups and everything, but in terms of fans in the ground, there isn't a bigger ground. That's the biggest game in terms of numbers in the European Cup ever. So you're not going to get an atmosphere like that to play in. So that will, and the occasion of it will only help them develop as as players and as people, etc. And they'll be better equipped for the Premiership running. Obviously, you're right. It would be great to have that week off, but it would have been nice that they would have found the energy from somewhere. And I think, you said like they've obviously rested all the Leinster players going. They sent the Shags out to South Africa, so they they got thumped over there, but to prepare for that game. But then it showed, the last 20 minutes they were gone on their feet, Leinster.
Yeah.
The opportunity there was and it was fair and square. We would have got through, and we competed with Leinster fair and square. We were as good as them. It's no, they won, fair. They did win, but we matched them. We went toe to toe with them. I think the thing is, Leinster don't treat the URC like their domestic trophy. They see the Champions Cup as the domestic rugby in Ireland. That's the tournament, whereas obviously the Premiership is a massive deal to Premiership clubs. And maybe that's because their URC isn't really domestic anyway, because it's got all the Welsh, Scottish, Italian, South Africans, etc. So it's not a domestic title. I mean, in my view, that tournament needs revisiting. They should crown domestic champions. Like, even if you're like a Welsh team, you can't actually compete with any of the teams in that tournament. But at least you could be, at the end of the year, aspire to be the champions of Wales. Their tournament's broken, and it's just they just remodel it, trying to throw stuff at a wall and hope it sticks, sort of thing. And it's But what it does do is it allows them to develop talent and put together a very, very, very strong side that works for them on a domestic and a European and an international level.
I do think Toulouse will absolutely batter them in the final.
Yeah, I think Toulouse
is such a better team.
Yeah, and I think I picked Toulouse within like last couple of rounds of the pool stages. I was like, nah. Good luck to anyone coming up against them, because they were scary.
If you swap the fly halves as well, if Finn Smith had been in the Leinster team, we'd have lost by a country mile. I didn't think their fly half had a good game at all.
No, I did.
He was the only link in their side.
I did go on and have a look and kind of, sometimes I like to go on social media, like their social media, and have a look. And they were obviously happy to get through, but there were criticisms leveled at that squad by their own fans.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced they're massively looking forward to the final in terms of what the score might be.
He's
But
no
Ross
Johnny
Byrne
Sexton, is he?
Ross Byrne is what stood out to me as a lot of people saying he's not the 10 that we need for that side.
I think that their success has built that culture, though. Their success amongst 100%. Their fans is they now expect to win every week. They expect to have an international fly-off. You know, we've obviously had various players over the years, and you're like, well, that's just the level we're operating at. Whereas they expect to basically be watching the international team. And obviously, Ross Byrne for them he's kicked winning kicks for them in URC finals, and he's played an awful lot of games for them. You'd think he'd be a fan's favourite, but it's like, because he's not Johnny Sexton. And, you know, I think that's the thing, though, in terms of their fan base as well. And their fan base turns up for the big games. They turn up for the Champions Cup. You know, the RDS is a smaller stadium than Saints Ground. Franklin's Garden's a thing. So, like, their week in, week out fan base is very, very similar to us. It's just when it comes to the Champions Cup, Dublin turns up. I mean, I've got to say, though, I thought the fan base and the crowd was really, really special. They were there for the day out. A lot of them weren't rugby fans per se that I met and spoke to. They were GAA fans who were just, you know, seeing what's happening at the ground,
what's going on,
and which amazed that they got tickets. But they were all friendly and just having a great time. The Leinster fan next to us was joining in with Saint songs halfway through. You know, it wasn't partisan, that's for sure. But when it went against them, they sure got behind them. Yeah.
I mean, it's a weird thing to think that the semi-final is going to get more people than a final, because the capacity of Tottenham Hotspur is not as high.
No,
it's somewhere in the 60,000s, I think. So, you know, you aren't going to get as many for a. I'm sure the atmosphere will still be incredible.
It's
just a weird thing. It's just a weird thing to me to be like, you know, you're going to get you would get 20,000 more people at semi-final. And just the fact that sold out was insane, to be honest with you.
Yeah. No, Croke Park is one of the special grounds. I think it's the third biggest stadium in Europe. And it was just amazing. I don't know how I ended up in like premium seating. So when we got there, we were looking for a seat. We couldn't find it anywhere. Then we got pointed to like a door with blokes with black coats and ties on, and we went up like this escalator. And it sort of, it was very, very nice. It wasn't a particularly expensive ticket, so amazing. But,
no, I think the prices were good as well. They were quite competitive, and you could go. I mean, obviously, if you were sitting way at the top, like, because I was in the one of the lower blocks, and so could actually see what was happening. But if you were really far away, I don't know how much you'd be able to see. But no, it was a great stadium.
Yeah, the commentators said on the thing, they were like, "Oh, the people at the back row are doing altitude sickness tests because they're that high up."
No, it's big. We were like we had perfect sort of good elevation, and then straight on there. It was good. In terms of the players and how they performed, etc. I've got a few players I'd want to point out, but who for you stood out for us in the
Augustus
was an absolute beast.
Yeah, and that's not. Yeah,
they said he'd been man of the match. He said very rarely you get man 100%. Of the match on the losing side. I can't believe Lowe got a hat trick. He didn't get man of the match, but obviously Gibson Park was the difference. We know that, but Augustus, my God, I've never seen. I think that was his best ever game for us.
He loves the big occasion, doesn't he?
Yeah,
he does. He didn't look like anyone who was, because the young guys, you could just, and it's not their fault because they're young and it's a huge stadium and it's a huge game, and it's so, you know, the nerves got to them, and like that's not a surprise, and they'll learn from it, and the nerves won't get to them next time because they'll have learned from it. But Augustus, it was like he just came out and he was like, we're gonna win this game, and obviously we didn't, but he just had that attitude from like the second that he stepped out, and I thought it was incredible. And like I said, me and Simon, we both just went Augustus at the same time. Like he just massively stood out as like a head above the rest, like comfortably.
Yeah, he was awesome. He reminds me a bit of Tonga Suwali Tonga Tiny. He, in the sense of that they had to do it was like a constant task for the coaching staff to get him up for the games and get him bothered about playing and being fit, and that they had to really sort of almost bully him into getting fit so he could be at his peak. And like really push him and make him get up for it because he was so laid back. And it seems like Augustus, it's almost like, because sometimes even like the Stormers game, which was a friendly, he was amazing in that game because obviously he was playing against his old club, so he was just massively up for it. Whereas
Yeah.
I think maybe week in, week out, we haven't always seen that from him. So they've got to work out a way of like tricking him into thinking every game's the biggest game in the world, you know.
Yeah.
But
Well,
he's
yeah,
obviously
should
been
be.
great. But
He's only 26, saying the young boys. He's not very old.
No.
Yeah.
But that should be easy. That should be easy in terms of like tricking into thinking that every game from here on out, because the Prem's all we've got left. It is literally the be all and end all of the season, so it should be easy to get him to up and about. But yeah, I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because the team as a whole, it was, like I said, for 60 minutes it was underwhelming. But I just want to say big props to all of the replacements that came on. I think every single one of them made a key difference in terms of the energy levels. Like, it wasn't that they did anything spectacular, it was just the energy they brought on seemed to help lift up the rest. And I think that was really beneficial.
I think one of the big factors, and it was a player coming off the bench, and it's not to criticise Mitchell because he's a world class player, but his kicking game just didn't seem. Maybe it was because of the pitch, and you know
he looked late.
The lines on the pitch are obviously a long way in from the edge of the grass, and whether that was putting him off or something, I don't know. But his kicking game was constantly too long, and the chase. Obviously they want to be connected, but because it was too long, it never had that energy to get on top of, put a big hit in, start pressurising their attack. So we were sort of going up and down the pitch without really getting any teeth into the game. Whereas when James came on, his kicking game just elevated and meant that we were competing every time. So the ball's coming down and straight away we were smacking the man, getting on, competing the breakdown, putting them under pressure, rushing them a bit, and from there we scored our points and we got back in the game and made it something. So I thought James would, for us, I thought he was the most influential player in the sense of when he came on, we changed the way we played dramatically and he gave us a football. I thought I thought Curtis Langdon, he was physical. Yeah. It was quality. He was putting shots in left, right, and centre.
He always is, but I must say that the line out from both of our hookers was underwhelming. And that's a key. It's one of the hookers' key jobs, right? You've got to hit your man, especially when you're in.
I wasn't there though, but how loud was it?
Oh, it was loud.
You got to think they're listening to a call, and if the crowd are super loud and he's misheard the call, I'm not excusing it, but it didn't sound very loud on the telly because obviously they turn it down a bit. But
so it was loud, but I certainly wouldn't have said to a level that you can't.
Well, I think once they know the call, they pick it up off the movement. So I think I don't think either of our hookers' strengths is their throwing, and I would say our line out is our strength. It's functional at best. Our defensive
that's fine.
And attacking is fine, but it just didn't click. And it meant we lost a lot of opportunities because we were getting down there and then giving up the ball.
I mean, it's not a problem. It's not a problem for me necessarily that the line out isn't anything more than functional. But if it is only going to be functional, it needs to be functional. If that's the one thing it's going to do, if the one thing is right, all we're going to get from it is to get the ball back. You need to get the ball back, and we didn't multiple times. And so then when you're 20 to 3 points down at one point, when you're 17 points behind, those become key indicators in terms of the game. And I think interestingly, I think the scrum was difficult because I thought you look at who the front three are for Leinster, you think, Jesus Christ. You think you don't even have a shot, but actually it felt very 50-50 to me. Sometimes they went early and sometimes Leinster went early and that happens. But I actually felt like they managed to compete a lot more than I thought they would. And you said, I think it was a lottery, I think, in terms of where the decisions went. But
that's why I think they picked Waller.
Competing.
Just pick Waller because he's a bit bigger than Manning. Just to start, just for the sheer size. But
no, 100%.
But going back to the lineup, though, I think it's you're right in the sense of it needs to be functional because one of our real strengths is our line out attack off of the round 22. When we put the ball down, the hooker comes off the back of the sort of the maul, and then we have 3 or 4 options to play from there. We scored an awful lot of tries off of that set place, and if we can't set that up, and it might be that they were purposely disrupting it. It's hard to tell. I haven't watched the back, but they might have been noticing something and actively disrupting that because they know it's one of our key strengths. But we just couldn't get that functioning, and that's one of the reasons we couldn't get into the game. And like you said, I agree with. I think scrums were 50-50. Big Trev did a great job half the time. And
the ref got a lot wrong. The ref got a few calls wrong in the scrum. Just before he went off, he got a penalty against him, and it wasn't against him. It should have been Leinster, but I felt a bit bad because it looked like they subbed him because he had a penalty against him, but it wasn't. Yeah, he held his own. But yeah,
that's what I mean. I think they did like hold their own, generally speaking. And then I think Courtney is always Courtney.
It's just
I mean, but I must say though, and this is no disrespect to the guy because I think he's the best we've ever had, and probably one of the best we'll ever will have. I'm not convinced that was the right choice for captain, if I'm being honest, from my personal view. I think he's very much a lead by example type, few word, not words, but like follow my actions kind of thing, which is fine. I think that works for some teams, but to me, I think Furbank as captain brings something a bit different for that core group of young guys that perhaps, which I personally, and people are not always going to agree, and some people are just going to be like, it's Courtney, of course he should be captain.
Yeah.
But for me, I think Furbank brings something for those young guys in particular in terms of cohesion and being able to kind of talk to them, and they obviously will all respect Courtney, no doubt, but I don't know, for me it felt like, and the same in the game before, it just feels like a bit of leadership on the field was missing slightly, like someone just to be like, right, I need to talk to these guys. And I think Courtney will probably tell you that's not necessarily his strength, and sometimes a lead by example guy is absolutely perfect. Like, you watch Courtney in the breakdown trying to get turnovers and bashing people left, right and centre, and sometimes that's enough, but it feels like perhaps our kind of core group of young guys need a little bit more, which isn't a bad thing. You just need a captain that can give that little bit more, and I think that's why Furbank had that 12 match winning streak, and he has such a good relationship with that core group of backs players as well, and it just felt like they weren't really in the game for quite a lot of it.
I'm not sure if leadership was the thing there though, because I think Ferbs would.
No, I'm not just saying that. Yeah. Not saying that on its own. I just
Ferbs and Dingle will still, I believe, would have been leading the group in terms of the voices and the talking and leading that conversation and building the energy through the week and being really vocal.
Definitely.
And Finn and Alex Mitchell and Smith would have been tactically they would have controlled the game. I think the benefit of picking Courtney Laws in that scenario is the relationship with the ref, because he has such a stance in the game. He has so much respect in the game. He is one of the world's greatest players, that suddenly if he's talking to you, the refs go, oh, I better give him his due and talk to him. Whereas if Finn was doing it, or whether if Dingwall or Furbank was doing it, they don't have that same sort of gravitas and same sort of.
Was like that. The ref said to him, you could hear him on comms. He was like, "Courts, no, don't go in there." It wasn't Courtney, it was Courts, like he was his mate. Do you know what I mean? So I get what you're saying.
I don't know if it just felt like, just to me, that it felt like messing with something that wasn't broken previously. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That was like that because Lewis was injured, and I'm old school. I always like my captain to be a forward. I'm just old school. The backs do the fancy stuff, the forwards do the hard work, and I think the captain should be a forward. Always have done. Which is
interesting, because I think next year I'd be very surprised if they pick anyone other than Ferbs.
Yeah.
I think
it's a very hard position to captain from fullback,
because you're right at the back.
Yeah.
You're a bit detached, and you haven't got as many opportunities to chirp away at the ref.
But his argument to anyone that says that is, "Well, look what I did when I was."
No, exactly.
He's got the perfect argument to be like, and like I said, I'd be very surprised if they picked anyone other than him. I think, and that's who I would want to, just based on.
I agree.
His attitude and relationship with the players and the winning streak. You can't, that literally cannot be taken away from him in terms of he guided the team to that. And it was a big role to step into, right? Because Lewis is a very particular club captain, very forceful with the words and very, very big on that. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think he's been a great club captain. I just think that Fairbank stepped into that role kind of beautifully. and really managed that well in that whole time. And it's a big thing to do, you need to take over from someone like Lewis. And that's just my own personal opinion. Like I said, some people will agree with you that it was a big game and you needed perhaps experience. I just felt like for me, we had a winning formula with that, and it would have been my preference to stick. But I do get it, obviously.
It's just the practicality of the referee half the time, because Ferbs will always drive the energy, and Dingwall will always bring some technical stuff and always be very vocal and say the right things. But if you're at fullback, you want to be out there just to say something to the referee. You then got to get back into position, so you're constantly sort of at conflict of, I need to say something to the referee, but I also need to do my job at the back. And
Fairbank did go over to speak to him a couple of times, so it's interesting that Fairbank still perhaps took on, whether it was intentional or not. It was just like, or it was just an automatic kind of thing that he was kind of used to doing. Like, I think he has been good at managing that, because like I said, he's still young and it's a lot of pressure. And I think some people will agree with Simon that they think it should always be a forward, but I think for me, I think George would have a right to be very disappointed if he wasn't the one selected. Because at this point, because we're losing
the World Cups and that, they're most of them are forwards, aren't they? Martin Johnson. It's just because, like Charles said, you are literally there in the referee's face all the time. If you're playing fullback, you're 20, 30 metres down the pitch. If you've got to ask him something, you then got to sprint back. So I get what you're saying. It'll be
interesting what happens for the rest of the season, because I think Lewis dislocated his shoulder, so he's not going to be back immediately, if at all, potentially. Obviously, we don't know the extent of the injury and we can't even guess. But dislocations, they usually say, can be quite difficult to manage, because it can't heal traditionally, can it? So they're quite difficult to manage in terms of. So we certainly aren't going to see him at least for the next probably week or two, if at all. So it'd be interesting if they carry on with Courtney, or if Ferbs comes back in as captain. I don't know what that decision will be at that stage, to be fair.
I don't think they'll overthink it. I think it doesn't. Whoever's got the armband, not the metaphorical armband on, it doesn't really matter. All it is the person who on the day talks to the referee.
As long as they're doing that. And like I said, it's hard with someone like Reynal, who clearly wasn't interested in getting the TMO involved. Like I said, some refs, even in the Premier, like that, they want minimal interaction, and some are the opposite. Some are open to talk. Ones like Matt Kiley, for example, tend to be very closed to people coming up and talking to him, and it's just different reffing styles. So sometimes,
exactly. If you're Matthew Kiley and Courtney Laws talks to you, you shut up and listen, don't you? But anyway, let's move on. I think we've covered off that game. It's sort of. I think we're all saying the same thing. It was a really incredible effort from the side. They did the club and the town proud, and it shows you that we are at that level. We're millimeters away from being that level. But also,
and I hope they know that, though. I hope they know that, and because they looked destroyed by the end of that when they didn't get the win. So I'm hoping they know how people feel about the performance and the team, like especially moving forward, because they were gutted. I mean, Waller in particular was very emotional, like walking around at the end. So
it's last game, though, isn't it? Last
exactly.
Courtney's last Championship Cup game.
But when he was
for Saints anyway.
Yeah, because I mean, when he got subbed off as well, he just and like you said, it is the last game, but I think all of them looked absolutely gutted. And Finn in particular, was gutted. So
from that close, that's why.
Exactly.
Well beaten. They came within 3 points.
So I hope they hold on to that, because the reality is, like, and we're also going to move into Gloucester now, is that there isn't time to dwell on that. Like, we still have a tournament that we are the favourites to win, and we need to go and win, to put it pretty simply, really.
That's the thing. Like they probably in that moment had the belief they were going to win that game, and they were so close to doing it. So have the carpet pulled from under your feet must have
definitely
really hurt. But like you say, it's the thing with that is, though, it's an emotional task to get back up for Gloucester. That's a massive down in the season, and they've got a game against Gloucester whereby they should be well and truly favourites to get 5 points. And if we get 5 points, we've got a home semi-final. So the carrot is there. But for them to get themselves up for, having experienced the great Coliseum of Croke Park, get themselves up for the little gardens in Northampton.
I think there'll be. I don't know.
Gardens.
I think they'll be. I think because it's a sold out crowd, I think they'll be well up for that. I think the thing with Croke Park is it was loud, but it's not massively personal. If you know what I mean, you're quite far away. Whereas sometimes when it's smaller, it just kind of amplifies it. And I think they'll absolutely love. I think they'll love to be back out there in front of a sellout crowd in particular. That's probably exactly what they'll need.
Yeah, it's an opportunity to just get straight back on the horse, which I'm sure they'll be
Exactly.
grateful for. It's just how
100%,
their mental fatigue and emotional fatigue and physical fatigue as well. Bearing up, that Gloucester are actually funny in the opposite position, haven't they? They've just won a semi-final. I know it's in the Challenge Cup, but it's all relative. For them on the season that they've had to win that game, even though they won it quite well. It puts them in another thing. So their focus now is probably not on the game at the weekend.
I have a friend of mine, and I was talking to him about it at the weekend, and he said that won't be their focus anymore because they barely got their ninth. They can't compete, and it won't be their focus.
They said that in the match. I watched their game. They said when they realised where they were in the league, they're out of it, so they're just going to focus on that. So they've got us and Newcastle. They don't. They might just rest players. They've got two. Rest.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think they'll necessarily rest them completely. Like you might find some start and maybe go off early, or they come off the bench perhaps again. But yeah, they're not. I certainly don't think they're going to be throwing everything at it because, like I said, they've got a trophy to win. And I mean, I don't know if they're favourites or not. I'd say probably not. I'd say probably not favourites. Yeah, but like I said, that's the one for them. So. All of their energy will be put in that. So it'll be interesting what squad they put out. But I don't think they can't afford to rest their players for 2 games for what would eventually be 3 weeks. So it will be strong-ish. It just may be a case of they give it 40, 50 minutes, and if they've lost, they'll come off.
It's going to be nice to play a team that hasn't got a designated pilfer of the ball. Like I'm fed up of playing teams that they've got flankers that we just can't get off the ball. Like obviously in the Tigers game that we were dealing with Reffel until he went off. He was pretty imperious, and then Will Evans obviously a joke over the ball, and then half the Leinster team is specialist at getting over the ball. So it's going to be really good to play a team that basically operates almost like a rugby league a defence in terms of it's very much get the numbers in the line, get off the line quick sort of thing. Yeah. And I think if their hearts aren't fully in it because they've got their eyes elsewhere, that you might end up with a few holes and you might be able to tear them up if we're on song. It's going to be a real emotional and real odd scenario, I think, for them to get back on the horse. I think that's the biggest task for the players this week because 9 times out of 10 that fixture goes very well in Saints' favour, but you've got all these other little factors coming into play that ask a lot of questions. And team selection is going to be key. I wouldn't be surprised if we play what people might deem to be a heavily rotated side, but just so that we get people who are up there ready to, it's their big game, they're ready to go. And the coaches will know who through the week where everyone's head's at and what they need. Because we can put out a weakened side, I think, and still beat Gloucester. And it's not that it's weakened; it's a case of it's horses for courses, and maybe we need to give someone a bit of a break to get their head over last week.
Yeah, like you said, then I have to kind of, like I said, talk to them, engage with them, and see how they're feeling. I feel I wouldn't necessarily start again if it's like me picking, and obviously I'm not. I'm not sure I would start necessarily heavily rotated. I think again this came up as well discussions with my friend of like you throw everything at it for kind of maybe 50 minutes, you probably get the win, particularly if, like I said, their hearts aren't in it and they're rotated, and then they all come off. And then you can send that really heavily rotated side to Bath, where if you're being honest, we could win. Of course we could win. We could win anything, I think. But I think you've already got the home semi-final in the bag.
Depends who you want to play, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I think
can we still finish second, can't we?
We can still finish second.
But for me, if resting players for Bath and coming second makes us fresher and more likely to win the title, it's something I'd take. Like I don't personally, it's who lifts the trophy at the end, right?
Do you want to rest them for 2 weeks though?
No, that's what I mean. I think that
You've got the European final the week after.
I think yeah.
It worked well enough for Leinster, didn't it?
But I also think we're going to be in a situation where we simply have to, so that they still have legs in them to keep going. Because I think it's been a long, hard.
To be fair, that Gloucester game was hard work for Gloucester. I watched it. That Treviso turned up and they nearly put them to the sword. They struggled at one point. I think Treviso nearly won it, but then because Mercer was yellow carded, stupidest yellow card ever. But so they would be battered because Treviso did give them a good duffing up. But
here's the thing, though, right? Is our goal to win the Premiership or make the final?
You got to win the Premiership, haven't you?
Right. So therefore, well, who would we? We're going to likely play Saracens in one of those games. Would you rather play Saracens at Franklin's Gardens or Saracens at Twickenham? So if we finish second and play Saracens in the semi-final, I don't know. I think if you're in goal, because I think we could beat all the other teams. I'm not sure I'd want to play.
Saracens, we beat them twice this year.
I'm not. Yeah, we're better side than them. We could definitely beat them, but they're the side that to fear most out of all the other sides, I'd say. And I don't really want to play Quins at Twickers either. But I wouldn't mind playing Saracens in the semi-final. I mean, there might be a bit of revenge there. After last year, and let's face it, the last decade, we've had a number of games against them where, there's a bit of rivalry and a few things have not gone our way. So having Saracens at the Gardens, maybe on a Friday night in a semi-final, I think that's what I'd want. And therefore, if that's what we have to do, then I'm all for it. I'd go to weekend.
This weekend though, you got Bristol Sarries, Exeter Harlequins. So there's still a lot to.
I mean, I'm not convinced that Quins are going to get that fourth place spot. I would pick at the moment, if I was going to pick who I think would get it, I'd say Bristol. And obviously that depends what happens this weekend. I think if Bristol win that match, then
no,
probably will be Bristol.
I
don't think I want to play. I wouldn't want to play Bristol at home either. I think I genuinely would rather pick to play Sarries, I think, than Bristol. But I don't know. It's hard, and
because we beat funny, but.
That's what I mean. I think the reality is they've got to do what's best for the players that they have and where they are physically, mentally, emotionally. And if that means resting quite a lot of the squad, not getting anything at Bath and coming second, that is what it is. Like if that's going to put the team in a better place moving forward, being first in the table is not the be all and end all. Like it just isn't. Like I don't think when we won the Premiership, I don't think we finished first. No. And then the next year we finished first and then crashed out in the semis. So being whether you're first, second, third, or fourth, it literally means nothing. And you're going to have to play two very good sides, whoever it is. I mean, I see what you mean. Like Saracens in a final, they sometimes just find a way. And so I see what you mean about maybe taking them on at the Gardens and then whoever else.
Be huge emotions in a final because everyone would know it'd be Faz's last game and all that sort of stuff. So
but then the same for some of ours too, though, isn't it? We've got last games for
Yeah, anyway, I'd go very strong. I'd go for the best team we think we've got, the best team ready for Saturday. Get the 5 points, and then after that, I wouldn't be surprised if they go heavily rotated for Bath, assuming we can get the win. And what I mean is, I think the team to play against Gloucester isn't necessarily what we'd put down as our first 15. No. It's the team that's best prepared and ready to play against Gloucester. Yeah. Because if Dingers is not there, right, because he's come down from Leinster, then I think Tom Litchfield could come in and do a really good job, and we wouldn't notice it. It'd be fun. And I think Waller probably. He's potentially a starter. He started in Croke Park, but I'd probably go with Manny. I think Curtis Langdon is pretty much just wants to play every game, so it's a case of managing him a bit as well. So maybe Mataveti gets a start. Big Trev, he'd probably send it, pay him, start him, but then definitely not start him against Bath.
Yeah.
I think Moon and Coles have both had rest recently, so they're probably ready to go.
They'll probably go this weekend, I would imagine, and then potentially And then they may, even at Bath, like they may be on the bench maybe, so they're not like totally rested, but they also haven't. Because really, I think the reality is that obviously you want to go and win every single game, but at Bath, if you've already qualified for that home semi, there will be an element of how much do we want to risk just to come top of and it may even be that all we need at Bath potentially is 1 point. Depending on other results, we only need 1 point. I think you could send a rotated side that's got a lot of talent, can get 4 tries, maybe not win, but they will bring that point back to you.
I think if Bristol beat Sarries and we get 5 points, we finish top, don't we? I'm just trying to work it out, looking at the fixtures.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's something like that.
I don't know the points off the top of my head.
I also think with the team against Gloucester at the weekend, it wouldn't be a bad idea to go really strong on the bench, because the players, the players are. They might, you don't know where their headspace is, etc. But once the game's underway, if you're coming off the bench, you've been watching the game for 60 minutes. Your focus now is very much here and now. You're not thinking about everything else, so you can come on and influence the game in that moment. Whereas, if you're starting, you've got all those sort of things going on. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see the likes of Mitchell, maybe Laws, maybe Dingwall actually on the bench this week. But that'd be interesting.
Like I said, it's actually, like, I think since we started this, it's probably the most difficult squad selection to kind of predict in terms of, because I think that, like you said, I'd go assuming that all of those players are in an okay headspace. I'd probably start as many of them as possible and just try and almost get that game wrapped up nice and early and kind of bring them off and then bring that bench on.
Yeah.
To just kind of close it out. Because like I said, if that game, I didn't watch the Gloucester game, but if it took as much out of it as people have said, and if they're going to rotate because they want to keep themselves fresh, or like I said, if their hearts aren't in it, it could be a victory that you've wrapped up potentially within 50 minutes.
I think they'll send a second string up, or like mix. I don't think they'll send it to play Treviso. Not a chance. They won't want to risk it because all their season.
No, I know, but you wouldn't want to risk it.
Double in it. They won the other cup. They want to win the other cup, and that's it. They won't care about this. Then they got Newcastle last game at home. They could beat them pretty easy, whatever. So they're not going to worry about getting injuries against us. I doubt. I think.
I have to admit though, the Gloucester Newcastle one would be interesting because Newcastle might be on 0 wins at that point still, assuming they don't get a victory. They might throw everything at Gloucester away.
Well, they will with Steve Diamond. Yeah.
And if Gloucester, that could be Newcastle's chance to win a game. Probably
their best shot at home on Friday.
That's what I mean. Yeah. So it's difficult. It's difficult for Gloucester because, like I said, we are favourites. I do think we're going to win. I just normally we say, like, who would we do from 1 to 15? I just think it's so impossible to kind of know because we're not in that room, right? We're not in that room where the players are saying, like, where the players are talking about how they're feeling about it and what headspace they're in. We're not there, and we can't possibly know.
The thing is, you should rest Courtney, but the thing is, he's only got 2 to 3, 4 games left for the club. So will he want resting? It's like his legacy, isn't it? So I don't think he might be on the bench. I'd put him on the bench. I'd put him on the bench. I think. I get the argument of he's leaving, so we can kind of just throw him into everything if we want to. Like, we'd kind of be within our rights. But at the same time, you need him for those kind of crunch games. He's too important. Yeah, he's just too important.
Yeah, I just think it'd be smart for them to re-energise the squad a bit after that game. So get the likes of Litchfield, Angus Scott Young, trying to think who else could come in.
I always forget his name.
Timo. Mayan Avanua. And
you could bring Munger in.
Yeah,
Chunga Munger.
People like that who they will try and put big shifts in, but you'll see some of them. You're going to see probably a Freeman, one of that kind of 3 or 4 of them. Some of them will be in because I just don't think we have the ability at the moment. Because I mean, Hendy, it didn't look like necessarily an injury, more that it looked like
he looked like limping. He looked like he was limping in the second half.
Yeah, when he did. But
he was hobbling a bit. Whether that's just
dead
leg.
At some point it looked like and it may even just be a case of like. Not that he's injured, but it's a lot to do when you've just been injured, to come in and have to kind of. So he might be a bench player. And we don't know the situation with Ollie, because I would probably, if Ollie's all right, I'd probably play him because he had a week off, and I'd probably get him in the squad because he can energise him just by. But that big layoff he had was from a concussion.
Yeah.
They're going to take that. They're going to be very cautious, and he won't come back until they're 100%, and that might not be this season for all we know.
Yeah, especially with Ollie, he's had a history of it. But if he's fit, they go through that protocol, don't they? And if he's fit and firing, then he would probably play. And someone like Seabrook would probably. I think he comes in and
I'd start Seabrook too.
Re-energising the back line with the likes of Litchfield, Seabrook, Ollie.
Yeah. Played against his old club.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great motivation.
And then I would
Tom James
start Tom James. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think the only difficult thing we have is that you'd probably have to start Smith.
Yeah.
Unless you move further back down and give Finn a rest. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard. They may even just throw caution to the wind. They may throw caution to the wind and think they can get the win and just put Savala in if both of them need resting.
No,
but they may not need it. Like I said, that is what would happen if they both aren't ready to go. But
I think
one or both of them should be okay. Yeah.
I think Finn and Verbs would probably both play, and then it's just energising around them. And then the likes of Angus Scott Young and Munger, etc. You sort of unleash them, and it's just that bit of energy, but keep a bit of stability and consistency.
And anyway, you're going to have to.
We better move on. So should we get on to predictions before we go?
Yeah. Oh, it feels tough.
I'll go first this week because I normally don't. And
yes.
I will say we're going to win 36-12.
Okay.
I think we're going to smash them. I think there'll be new energy in the squad, and they'll come out. The crowd will get up for it. After the game, the crowd will want to give them a bit of cheer, and it'll be a big game at the ground. Simon, what do you reckon?
What do you think?
I'll go 42-12. 10. 42-10.
Similar vibe.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking we could. I'm thinking that we could get into those 40 points, and I think that we're going to want to. I think we're going to want to get back to putting a marker down. So I'm going to go 45-15. Let's go for an exact 30-point spread.
Right. So everyone, you've heard it here first. We're going to score at least 40 points at the weekend. Easy win. So that's a given.
Why have we done this? Every time we do this, why do we say this?
Squad dependent.
Squad dependent, of course. Yeah.
I would still say even with rotation, we're capable of that.
Yeah, no, I agree. But so thanks everyone for listening. Please remember to like, subscribe, follow us on socials. Please do follow us on our own socials because we're going to have some more content coming up, and that'll be the best place to get access to it. Some really good stuff lined up. So please give us 5-star reviews as well. It helps us. But thanks everyone. You two going to say goodbye?
Oh, sorry. Bye-bye.
Oh, sorry. Goodbye to the listeners.